We're talking about the Virginia Tech shooter tonight, and there's a lot to cover. And there's tasteful ways to do it and tasteless ways to do it, and we're going to do both. What is the morality of covering this? And I feel that the appeal is generally the shocking nature of it all. We're going to say some shit, and we're going to do some shit that people are going to be like, oof, that's a spicy take. Am I going to be crossing line? What lines am I going to cross on this? What is the morality of covering these types of things? That's the argument of what is disrespectful or not. And I don't know. I don't have an answer to that, but that's what I thought about. I'm going to say it right now. There's a selfishness in being a victim. Can you believe it? Can you believe I just said that? I, as a victim myself, can say that. Tonight we're going into a big topic. We're into what has come to be known as the true crime streams. Here's the deal on this subject. It's a darker subject. And we have a lot of ins and outs we got to cover. But I also want to talk about the actual subject of the true crime genre itself. Okay, there's different ways to look at it. There's some good, there's some bad. It's a very engaging and entertaining type of subject. But at what cost? And how do you do it? And what's the good way to do it? So here's where we're going to start. We're going to talk about the Virginia Tech shooter. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. Hold on one second. I might be mispronouncing it. Hold on a second. Let me bring up the article here. It's Korean. Seung-Hui. Is that how you pronounce that? Cho? A lot of people call him Cho. That's what he was remembered as. That's what we're going to talk about. But before we just dive into what happened and people's reactions to it, we need to discuss the morality. There's a morality argument on the covering of true crime in general, and crimes in general, and incidents in general. And there's a few different ways to look at it. I have some opinions on it I'm gonna get into. But I seen this coincidentally pop up a couple days ago as I was planning this, and it kind of really made me start thinking a little deeper about this. And it's by somebody I generally just don't like. I've talked about him before. I don't like him. He's been on YouTube since its inception, and I've followed him, unfortunately, since its inception. And we're talking about none other than SXE Philip DeFranco, if you don't know. He's got a video, at least part of a video, in regards to true crime content on the internet. And I skimmed through it. I didn't see the full argument because I wanted to watch it live with you guys and kind of, experience it together, because I already have my opinions and I don't want to sway it quite yet, okay? Because, again, covering this, I don't know. For some reason, this one seemed to hold a little bit more weight than the other stuff we've covered. And we've watched some other stuff, but this one just, I don't know. I don't know what it is. This one kind of holds a lot of weight. Like Columbine, I'll never do. I have no interest in covering it. I have no interest. It's so beaten to death. And it's just like, and I hate the word incel. I hate the way it's used, but I have no other word to use to make this point. So, but it is incel bait, technically. If you were to use that word on a regular basis, that's what it is. And so I don't really typically like to talk about it. But this one, there's just so much weird shit in it. We have this morality question, okay? And let's first of all, let's see what Philip DeFranco has to say about it before I get too deep on the subject, because I have a lot to say on it before we get into it. So I figured this is the most responsible way to go about it before we get into a topic like this. All right, so let's take a look at Philip DeFranco. So he's got something he's got to say about true crime. And luckily it's only like 6 minutes here, and we'll see if we can kind of fast forward through it. So he just bothers me. I don't like him. I don't like his face. I don't like his mannerisms. I don't like but he's everywhere. You can't escape him, okay? He's like a bad case of herpes. No matter how long it's been, you can't get rid of him. He's always there.
There's so much crime content out there right
now.
There
is.
It's especially blowing up during COVID lockdowns. And while audiences, and I'll even include myself here, eat these stories up, on the other end of them are families that lived these gruesome realities, and seeing that play out for the world is not always easy. And for some, the idea of reliving their most traumatic days is too much to bear. Others can't stomach the idea of their stories being told inaccurate.
He is going fast. He is methed up.
Favor of dramatic flair, or that oftentimes it's usually the murderer who gets the spotlight, not the victim. And then for many, it's all of the above, which is actually why we spoke to Mariah Day, whose family's story was told in a miniseries called The Thing About Pam on NBC, produced by and starring Renee Zellweger.
Okay, so the argument here, just to recap, because I kind of went off on a tangent. So the idea is that possibly, hey, this stuff is interesting, but what about the victims and victims' families? All this attention is centered around the killer, murderer or murderers or whatever the criminals in this case. What about the victims? I'm guessing the argument is, are we going to be encouraging more bad behavior? And maybe we should be more empathetic to the people that are impacted by this and are trying to survive it and learn from that. Now, I have some opinions on it. I'm going to hold my breath because he may cover it, and I'm going to sound like a complete asshole if I say it my way right now. So let's just see what ends up happening.
Betsy Faria was suffering from cancer when she was found stabbed dozens of times in December of 2011. Betsy's husband, Russ, was originally charged over the murder and later convicted, with the leading witness in the case being Betsy's friend, Pam Hupp. All the while, though, following Betsy's death, Pam was actually the beneficiary of Betsy's $150,000 life insurance policy. And so Russ's conviction was later overturned in 2015, and Hupp was charged over Betsy's death in 2021 and is still awaiting trial. But also, notably, she's actually already serving a life sentence over the murder of Louis Gumpenberger, which, interestingly, is the punishment that
What a name. Gumpenberger. That's a movie on its own. All right, so hold on a sec. He said that so fast. I had trouble following along, like what was actually happening.
After entering an Alford plea, which allowed her to avoid the potential death penalty without admitting guilt to the crime. And so the story is laid out in The Thing About Pam, which aired over the spring and is now streaming. Zellweger plays Hupp, hamming the role up via prosthetics and aggressive quirks. The story overall has been described as taking something of a comedic twist on the case and the alleged misconduct that led to Hupp being initially ignored as a suspect.
Okay.
Sorry, I am
Okay, so she murdered somebody. People didn't expect her to be the murderer of it, and she was able to get this cash from a life insurance policy, and she almost got away with it because she's a big fat slop. Okay, got it.
Betty came straight from Zumba.
You do Zumba? I do Zumba.
See Thursday.
I'm Wednesday, Friday.
And Betsy's daughter Mariah has only been able to watch a handful of episodes after feeling shocked by the tone and tactics used to tell the story of the worst days of her life.
We lived this, and it's just so weird to see that.
Well, hold on a second. I don't think the daughter of the murderer is going to be a big fan of any of the content that comes out of the murder. Let's be real here. I know everybody's talking about the Jeffrey Dahmer documentary or show on Netflix. It's not a documentary, it's a show. I'm sure that anybody associated with that case that's still around is not getting excited to watch it. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that's not an unreal expectation. So let's be real.
Our real lives in such a tragedy, in such a satire way. Like, it's not funny to us.
And according to Mariah, when she was first approached by NBC about the show, she was under the impression that the network was making a documentary, not a scripted series about her mother's death. And so she said she
would that have been better?
Sit down for an interview to discuss her story, but only learned it would be a fictionalized version of the incident when she saw the trailer. And so in the lead up to the series, Mariah began posting several TikToks about the show and how she found it insensitive. Some of those posts also going viral, with many responding by supporting Mariah and her message about why it's so important for true crime storytelling to be ethical. But some having the same issues with The Thing About Pam as she did.
I've had so many people reach out and say it was completely disrespectful. I had to turn it off as soon as I saw the tone of the show without even knowing me or my family.
With some critics also agreeing, The Independent calling the series a lesson in how to not make a true crime series, writing that little felt true about the crime presented, and adding that when it comes to the tacky exploitive depths of true crime, let's hope we finally hit the bottom of the barrel. Now with all of this, we saw NBC previously
so here's the problem here. Okay, so what if we just took that story, changed some names around, and then it was like it was just influenced by real events. I'm guessing you probably wouldn't have as much of a problem with it because you're not so much easily connected to that story. And it's not so beneficial for yourself to make a stink over it. I don't know. I don't trust this. This seems a little odd. Now, I'm going to wait till this is done, and I'm going to tell you my thoughts on the morality of the covering of true crime and all that stuff.
Series in a statement to BuzzFeed News saying, The Thing About Pam is a fictionalized television series based on true events that are heavily documented and in public domain. Since the inception of the project, it has been a top priority of the creative team to honor the spirit of the story while also treating the real people impacted, many of whom shared their experiences as part of this process with sensitivity and respect. But Mariah hardly feels that this story was told sensitively.
They really focused on the killer. They kind of glorify her in a way by showing her like this quirky lady who had everyone manipulated when.
Well, okay, so to echo Jimmy Pocket's sentiments, No one's ever heard of the other people before they got killed. So what have they ever done? You know? It's a catch-22. It's catch-22.
Like, it wasn't completely like that, being like so close to it. I mean, they show her consoling me, which never happened. I've never had a conversation with Pam Huff. So it's really weird to see my mom's killer my mom's killer on TV consoling us when that never really happened.
And she's not alone in finding it difficult to watch her family's true crime story play out in a sensationalized way. For example, when Jordan Preston learned that Hulu was making a documentary about the man who killed her sister Brooke, she made a Change.org petition to stop the release of it in writing. We clearly will never be given the opportunity to grieve in peace, from her brutal murder to the drawn-out trial to the appeals still taking place, and now to this. That much is apparent. Also, you have people like Mindy Pendleton, whose stepson Robert was murdered at the age of 25, telling Time magazine that it was her greatest fear when Netflix said that the incident would be featured in a true crime docuseries, and saying that she actually begged Netflix to not do it. And Mariah knows that as if living through these tragedies wasn't hard enough, having them reemerge as forms of entertainment only re-traumatizes those involved.
I definitely struggle with mental health, but I get strength from my mom. And if I...
So I get the idea here. So he teased me. He clickbaited me on this. I thought he was going to actually take like a moral stance on it, but it's Philip DeFranco. He never does. He never takes a moral stance on anything. He'll just be like, well, I don't know. What do you think? Put the comments down below. And I'm like, God damn it, you fucking tricked me again. Here's my opinion on it. Overall, when we're talking about the subject of true crime and all that, here's where I go with it. Because I see that as, I guarantee if she signed away the rights with the understanding it would be a documentary. What does it mean if there is a documentary? Well, documentaries do interviews. And who do they interview? They typically interview people still alive to tell the story, right? What does that allow us to be able to do? What opportunities does that grant you that if they do a scripted series does not? You see what I'm getting at here? I know I sound cynical and I may sound cold, but I honestly feel that that's an angle here where these are terrible events that happen. And people are from all angles, myself included, are eager to find entertainment out of it and to benefit from it in some way, shape, or form. And so that's the argument that I posed to myself originally. Like, okay, so is there what's tasteful, what's not, what's being covered currently? So let's bring us back out of that scenario with this murderous woman and bring us back to what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about the Virginia Tech shooter tonight. And there's a lot to cover. And there's tasteful ways to do it and tasteless ways to do it. And we're going to do both. We're going to do both. We're going to cover both ways. Of course we're going to do both ways. Tasteless is fun. This story in particular that we're going to cover, there's very little there's very little independent coverage on this story. If you go to YouTube, and we'll do it right now, I'll even show you. If you go to here and you want to look up Virginia Tech shooter, we're going to look up documentary even. True crime, whatever. A lot of what you get are going to be the news clips from that period. This is from 10 years ago. That's ABC News, Associated Press from 11 years ago. HLN's doing a look back on it 7 years ago, 15 years ago. That's CBS News. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of this. There's not a lot of independent people. But if I were to look up Parkland shooter, that'd be different, right? Parkland shooter is different because that's more modern. A lot of people want to talk about it. And my curiosity is why? Why isn't this one talked about as much? Is it just because it's so weird? I remember it was covered a lot during when it happened. But what interests me is why is no one else really touching on it? And there's a few different reasons we're going to get into. But to back up to our original argument here is, what is the morality of covering this? Why do we like watching this? Well, I think generally, I thought about, why do we enjoy watching true crime or criminal documentaries and so on? And I feel that the appeal is generally the shocking nature of it all. We love to be shocked and surprised all the time. No matter what your background is or your beliefs, it's just your level of shock is always just different, right? And combine that with a moral superiority that we can carry, being able to sit in judgment of someone that we can all like call a monster, right? Did that make sense? Because I just read it verbatim of how I wrote it, so I think I might have butchered that. So we're getting the appeal of the shocking nature of it all, and then we're combining it with being able to easily have a moral superiority as we sit in judgment of someone that we all know is a monster. It makes it easy. It's very easy. We know what the good guys are. We know what the bad guys are. But I guess the question really comes in of if what's tasteful or not. Can we? We're morally free to mock the killers. Of course, we don't want to make fun of the victims. That'd be terrible. So that's where the tastefulness comes in. And you got to be careful to straddle that line between, as was looked at in the Philip DeFranco side of the argument. What's a cash grab and an attention grab versus actually like trying to cover it where you're walking away with something. Generally, when I wanted to tackle this, I had to ask myself, am I crossing a line of that? I know we're going to say some shit I'm warning you. We're going to say some shit and we're going to do some shit that people are going to be like, oof, that's a spicy take, but we're going to be doing I have to ask, am I going to be crossing a line? What lines am I going to cross on this? How can I do this better than what it's already been done? And right now, the competition's pretty low because nobody's done it. And I'm going to show you some examples of what else is out there. But at the end of the day, I think if we take the victims out of it, we have to ignore it. We have to look at the perpetrator of it because that's what you got to look at. That's what you got to focus on. If you look at just that, I think it's the best punishment for what they were striving to do. What do they try to do in these scenarios? They want to like live on in infamy and be like, oh, I remembered that guy. He killed a bunch of people. Watch out for him. They want to stand, unless they're just fucking nuts, which I guess they all are to a degree for them to do that. But I think that it's a fitting punishment for him because that's what they're wanting to do, especially like the person we're going to talk about. He wanted to be infamous. He felt he was not seen, and he wanted to be seen, and now we're going to see him in a lot of different ways. And I think between what I do tonight and these examples I'm going to show you of how he's being covered currently, I think is punishment enough. And I think that's why more people need to cover this type of stuff, because it is a fitting punishment for these general pieces of shit. So anyway, here's a few different things. So when you look that up, you get a lot of mainstream news. So I try to find like what's an independent thing, because we usually watch somebody else does all the work for me. I don't want to have to put together all this information. I don't want to have to do a bunch of patchwork and research and put a big report together. I just want to watch someone else's work and comment on it and make jokes and get all the accolades for it. That's what I want. But it wasn't the case on this subject. But I was determined we're going to cover this. So when I did look, these are the options that I had. The options I currently had was this there's two ladies which are both doing the thing I don't like. I like a faceless narrator giving me footage, text, audio, video clips. Document this. I don't want to hear you talking to me. Don't vlog this to me. Tell me about it. First of all, let's take a look at the first one here. Let me load this one up. So this one is from a channel. We're not going to watch the whole thing because these are like 20-minute, 12-minute long videos. But I just want to give you a taste of what they're doing. All right, so this is a channel called Crazy TV. And this is the most popular video on this subject, and it's not very good. The title is "Shy Guy Turns Out to Be America's Darkest Suspect." Seung-Hui Chow, Virginia Tech mystery. You didn't want to put shooter in there, and that's the other thing. I can't put shooter. I can't say shooter, Virginia Tech shooter anywhere because you get flagged and shadow banned and all that stuff. And maybe that's why they don't talk about it. Not as many people talk about it. I have my theories, and we're going to cover that shortly. But here is this has got 250,000 views.
I'm actually very shocked today because today's case, no other YouTubers have covered it.
No,
this case
true.
Is named one of the most bizarre.
And this was made in February, this last February. So she was like right up on it. It's her and one other girl. The production work on this one's pretty good, but we're not going to watch the whole thing because it's just not. I'd rather just pull up the Wikipedia article and go through that, which that's not going to be the whole night. So don't you worry. Settle down. But
in America, yet it's almost as if it's forgotten. And I was also shocked that one of the deadliest cases in America, the suspect was Korean. Of course,
can you
race
believe
and
it?
ethnicity had no part in today's case.
All right, so let's get to what's important, because she's got a commercial coming up.
Back, you guys, grab a
So
snack.
this is the argument. So when I start looking at this stuff, I'm like, is this the distasteful approach of true crime? Maybe a victim of, maybe somebody that was a victim to this crime or somebody associated with it would come across this. I can understand why they wouldn't like it. Now, I'm not saying we have to cater to those people, okay? I'm not saying that. The world doesn't revolve around everybody. Actually, the world does revolve. No, the world doesn't revolve around anybody. What am I talking about? That's the sun. The sun revolves around the earth, right? That's the way that works. But yeah, I mean, it's like, let me just sip on my Starbucks. I made a little like pasta dish. I went to Whole Foods.
I've been eating a lot at home and cooking myself. So if you hate going to the grocery stores like me and you want to, you can go to HelloFresh.com.
Yeah, we're gonna do get a HelloFresh ad.
Up to 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts. They morning. And in one of the resident halls, which was a co-ed
The audio
homeroom,
sucks.
a suspect walked inside student Emily Hilscher's room and fatally shot her. Another student who heard this loud gun sound went to check and see what was going on, but upon entering Emily's room, 22-year-old Clark was also fatally shot. Shockingly, the suspect actually ended up going back to his own dorm room.
I mean, the telling of this is just like so boring.
Himself, changed his clothes, and went onto his computer to delete his emails and remove a hard drive from his computer, which took about an hour. Then he casually walked to the post office.
Now, let's not really focus on the details of all this, because we're going to cover all this pretty in-depthly here. But I just want to show you, like, this is what's currently out there. You know, it's just a lot of these clips.
Never talk nor respond.
There
are a few encounters where Cho started to secretly take photos of his other girl classmates and even tried to take photos of the professor. He also wrote violent and obscene poetry, and his writings were so dark.
I wonder what that is. Hopefully we cover that tonight.
To the school.
There's a girl who is known for talking crime while doing her makeup and is much more exciting. True. No, you're absolutely right. I've seen that. Nobody has touched on this case, though. She's the only one. I bet you if I go, I don't know, but apparently she's got a ton. I mean, she's got millions of views on some of this shit. And this isn't that good. So when I think of like tasteless, I think of this. I think this is tasteless. You don't have the respect. Forget about the respect of the victims. The respect to your own audience. This is boring. This is terrible. When I found that this was like the most popular video on the subject, I was like, I don't know if we can do this. But don't worry, it gets worse. So we have this, okay? And then we have
Hey guys,
then we have this. So we have a girl sitting in her parents' living room floor.
To my channel, or welcome if you are new.
This is
Today's
another
video is
popular
going to
one.
be
This
another
is
really dark and mostly depressing video.
no one
This is where
does true
Sydney
crime like
Aldi,
Melvin
very
Troy, the true
famous
crime boy.
Virginia,
Well, I'm
she
trying to.
or Virginia.
I am kind of poisoning the well for you right now. I'm going to be honest with you. So I'm showing you a lot of shitty stuff. So when we get into full gear here, you're going to be like, wow, maybe some of that stuff was a little tasteless, but boy, it was better than the other options. There might be a procedure here I might be doing this for a reason. I like your choker.
Virginia Tech massacre, really.
Oh yeah.
Depends
It's a
whether you
shoelace.
call it. So if you are not familiar with Virginia Tech, it is a university.
I like that
in
they
Blacksburg, Virginia.
again they present it as like they're just presenting a report to the class, and people watch this. I mean, I'm like, Somebody, Kylie, says, I'm shocked you're not more popular. I love your content. Keep it up. And I'm like, I don't.
And this shooting occurred on April 16th, 2007. Seung-Hui Cho, I'm probably totally butchering that. Cho was from South Korea. He was a senior at Virginia Tech, and he was 23 years old.
It's the same photos from the other
ever since he was young
thing.
He just seemed a little bit different.
You like her map? It's a good map.
Middle school
Very
and
good
high
map.
school,
She probably does this for college or right after college to get noticed. Probably, no, true. I'll be fair. That is probably true. She looks like she's probably in college. This is definitely her parents' house. This is not her house. No girl this young living on her own has a couch like this. That's old man couch. You know that's her dad's couch. That couch is specifically for her dad to sit and watch TV in. That's what that is. She sounds like she's explaining the grounds of a campus I'm attending. Yeah.
Junior year of college at Virginia Tech, he showed some signs of a deteriorating state of mental health.
It's just some deteriorating state of mental health, as some people call it. We don't know.
To his professors. And he had
I'm going to make a video about a killer. I better not look up how to pronounce his name. I'm going to be honest, though. I don't know how to pronounce his name either. And I sat and I wrote fucking paragraphs on this, so I don't know. I can't fault her on that. It is a tricky name.
Classroom behavior that they just thought was kind of disturbing. And some of them actually even encouraged Cho to seek more counseling. And as I already mentioned, he had already been through therapy.
And he's like, no, I refuse to do counseling. Counsel this.
Throughout his life, and he was actually investigated by his school, Virginia Tech, twice.
Can you believe
before this shooting because he had been stalking female students. And back in 2005,
hey, Melvin Troy, you should start using air quotes now. I use them a lot as it is, but I use them appropriately.
He was even classified officially.
Classified. You know, they say they classified. You know, whatever.
And he was ordered.
It's pronounced Omachow? Oh,
treatment.
thank you.
So just overall, someone experiencing a lot of mental
All right, so let's fast forward. But it doesn't change. This goes on for 10 minutes. It's still her in front of her dad's couch. Oh, wait, here's a map of the dormitory.
204. There's a professor by the name of Liviu Lebrescu. He was an Israeli Holocaust survivor. He was the professor of one of these rooms that Cho was trying to enter. He was holding this door shut while...
Okay, anyway, we get the point of this. So we have this. Okay, and then the other option...
A WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and
we have WikiVidi. Now, WikiVidi, from what I can understand, is one of these AI-generated things that just kind of throws stuff together. I mean, this got like 6,000 views on it.
Enjoy. Seung-Hui Cho.
Seung-Hui
Cho was a U.S. resident of South Korean origin, a spree killer and mass murderer who killed 32 people and wounded 17 others armed with 2 semi-automatic pistols on April 16, 2007, at the Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University in Blacksburg, Virginia. An additional 6 people were injured jumping from windows to escape. He was a senior-level undergraduate student at the university. The shooting rampage came to be known as
You know what I love about this? The AI voice is better than some that I've already heard. At least get Siri to speak. I've heard worse ones. You know, when you get that Stephen Hawking's voice reading it to you, I don't know how people can watch that shit. But this one is like, okay, it's okay. I think he had Glocks, not 911s. Yeah, I mean, this is, as you can tell, it's just looking up keywords to the script and just finding images. Like these were not the victims of the shooting. I hate to break it to you guys, but this is not the victims. This is just a picture associated with the definition of mass murder, which he is described as. But let's fast forward a little bit here.
Convened a panel consisting of various officials and experts to investigate and examine the response and handling of issues related to the shootings. The panel released its final report in August 2007, devoting more than 30 pages to detailing Cho's troubled history.
You know what I love about this, though? I don't know if you've noticed. Not only do we have the nice Siri voice, but we have this great undertone background music. Now, you're thinking, like, oh, it seems a little jazzy right now. Maybe it switches tones after we set up the stage. No. Let's fast forward about 8 minutes.
More
It's still
than
there.
4 months after the attack, the Wall Street Journal reported on August 20, 2007, that Cho had been diagnosed with selective mutism. The Virginia Tech Review Panel report, also released in August
We
2000.
just got some elevator music, just kind of setting the mood, just a casual mood about a guy who shot up 30 people at his college. And then the other thing is, I don't know if you picked this up, is as each image comes up, there's a sound effect. I don't know if you've noticed the sound effect. It's kind of quiet, but it's interesting.
Something was wrong after the family's departure for the United States, because she heard frequent updates about Cho's older
Did you hear
sister.
that? Did you hear what happened when that picture came up? Let's listen to it again. Hold on.
Departure for the United States, because she heard frequent
It's like a bobcat roar. It's like a roar. You hear that? Nice relaxing elevator music for a mass murder spree. Yeah. I mean, so this is as I looked at this subject, and I thought to myself, am I able to straddle the line of something that's tasteful? Tasteful. I use that word very, very carefully. There's a line with all of us. We know where someone's gone a little too far. You know what I'm saying? You know that person you see on Facebook that posts like I don't know. I seen one. Someone they push something too hard, where they're just like, I see what you're getting at, but I think you kind of like were really extra blunt, and so it really comes across more cringy than it does like social commentary. And so I think of that every time I tackle a subject like this, especially something like this. But then when I look at this that we just saw, I think, fuck it, I think I'm safe. I think we're good. And I also think about, okay, what is the morality of covering these types of things? What is the morality of me going and spending 4-5 hours covering the mass shooting of a mentally ill person? I do benefit from it. We've had subscribers come in already, so technically I'm making money on it. Like, what do I feel? Like, what is the morality there? And again, once I see how shameless other people are, I think, I do a pretty good job. I think that's the price of quality. I think I'm putting a service out there, uncovering something well enough that that I think I can walk away with this feeling morally clean. I think as long as you're not disrespectful, it's okay. But that's true. But what's the line of it? That's the. I think maybe you missed the beginning of this. That's the argument of what is disrespectful or not. And I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. But that's what I thought about. And I thought that this is a subject that's come up lately because there is a lot of these true crime channels and content that's out on the internet. And as we saw with Philip DeFranco's segment, that so people are like, nah, I think that's not right. But then if you really get down to the root of why the people speak out about it, it's because they're not getting their cut of the pie. It's because not even just the money, but the attention of it, they're not getting it. So I think there's a selfishness there. I'm going to say it right now. There's a selfishness in being a victim. Can you believe it? Can you believe I just said that? And it's true. There's a bit of a selfishness there. I, as a victim myself, can say that. A victim of what? Of discrimination. I am discriminated for my views on a regular basis. And the fact that I have a mystery box in my home. But that's another story. That's another tale for another time. I don't want to give you a sob story about myself. I think the mainstream media news is worse than creators. Not sure why, but I think large news won't cover the whole story, where creators cover more and allow it for not just the bad things. True. So that's going to get us to our next thing. So that's actually perfect segue. Thank you, Opal Underworld. You did a great job here. Because let's talk about the news on this subject. Because it was covered heavily. This happened in 2007. So let's catch up real quick first. Let's catch up on the basics of this story, and then we're going to cover on what the actual news and the media and how that they did it and the criticisms against them. And I believe, truly I believe, the lack of coverage on this incident was due to the blowback of the media coverage at the time. And we're going to get into the specifics on all that stuff. But that's where I think a lot of the issues were. Let's catch up real quick on the basics of the scenario. So